So I really loved your write-up that you did about your book. Reading that made me feel like it's a very intimate book. It's very much about identity and your own journey into who you are as a person, both within your ethnic and racial background as well as your gender and sexuality. I would love
Exactly.
I would love to learn more about what, let's see, my first question was, can you talk about your personal inspirations for writing this book? What in your life caused you to put this collection together?
hmm So I guess I'll start with like the second part of that question. So the book came about because I figured out at the age of 30 that I was gay, that I liked the same the same sex. So that was what prompted the book. So I guess like figuring this out was a tough thing for me because I knew that the world doesn't necessarily love gay people or gay, Black, and Puerto Rican people, and I know the stigma within my own family, within my own the two cultures that I exist in. So it was a really trying time for me. It was something that I wasn't afraid of exploring because I knew that there was growth to be had. I knew that there was learning that would come from it. Um, and then figuring out, okay, now what do I do now that I have this information? What do I do with it? How does it manifest in my life? How am I dealing with the fear of telling my very Christian parents and telling my very straight best friends and brothers and things like that. So what I would do is I would go into the bathtub in the apartment that I was living in at the time, and I would soak in the bathtub as a way to give myself comfort. And it was a way that a lot of poetry was coming while I was in the bathtub. So I was literally writing the poems about how I was feeling in the bathtub. And so if you notice, like the first, the beginning part of the book, the first act is very different from, say, the last poem because I wrote them pretty much in chronological order. So that first act is really just about being in the bathtub, feeling like the ceiling is falling, um, knowing that there was never an option for me to stay in the closet or to I didn't have the experience. My experience was very different with my sexuality, and I feel like what happened to me not what happened to me, but the experience that I had was the closer that I got to my spirit and myself as a person, that everything in my life expanded, including my sexuality. So I don't have the experience of growing up and liking the same gender but hiding it. That just isn't my experience, and I know that might be hard for some people to believe, but I didn't have my first liking or knowing of wanting of attraction for the same gender until I was 30 years old. So my experience was very different, and then I feel like source or God or whoever you believe source to be gives you very specific challenges, so to speak, and a story. And I just feel like this is part of my story that it's like, okay, source said, okay, you're gay now and you're a poet. What are you gonna do about it? You know what I mean? Are you gonna write about it? Are you going to make it a little easier for the next generation of Black and brown gay boys and everybody, or are you going to keep it to yourself? And I knew it was something that I had to share. So that's how the book came about. I feel like that was a long answer.
Oh
Hopefully I
my
didn't.
gosh, so eloquent though. That's, I guess you really weren't even given an option then, because of course you're gonna write about it. You know what I mean? Like, of course you're gonna put it out there, of course you're gonna be reflective and put it into your art because that's what artists
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, didn't really have a choice. I was thinking about that question before we started, and I feel like source, like, first it was the book, and then it gives me the title, and it's like, oh yeah, the title has coming in it. Are you gonna use it, or are you not gonna use it? I was
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, I
And which
love
is
that.
not
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna say, which is not, I've had family members tell me that they didn't come to the book launch event because of that word. You know what I mean? So it can be a polarizing thing, but it's deeper than just using a word to grab attention. It's definitely doing that, and it's, I'm not naive to that. I like that. I think it's fun and funny, but it's also a deeper meaning to it. It's also about coming out and looking at the experience of coming out as something pleasurable. Because so many times when we're coming out as queer people, it's horror and it's scary, and it's just like flipping the word, um, in a way, and looking at it from, a kind of like a double entendre type of thing.
Totally. I definitely see that like tongue-in-cheek use of that word there is a powerful thing.
Thanks.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And it definitely grabs your attention. It's got some humor to it. And it's hard because whenever the experience of coming out, it can be a delicate thing. But with the use of the way you spelled the word coming in the title, it kind of opens the door for like, okay, we can laugh here. It doesn't have to be so serious. Like it can be, like you said, a pleasurable thing. It can be
Yeah,
community thing even. And we can all come here and have a laugh together. We can all come here and exchange our stories and really be who we are together. And that's really with the neighbors, I really hope that people feel like they can come to the table with their full self.
we're
And that's why I was just really inspired going to your book launch event and being able to flip through the book. It's really good to hold in your hands. It's hardcover, it's like Kurt
that
Vonnegut has this quote where he says books will never go extinct because we like the heft in our hands.
does.
And I love that. And your book definitely has that great feeling to it.
Thank you.
Um, one thing that I thought was really interesting was your use of the word, what was it, acts?
Hmm.
Um, Instead of like part or section or anything else you could have used, it was more like a playwright, like there was like the drama behind it. Was that intentional? Did you have like an intentionality behind using the word act? Was there like a forethought for specifically using that word to describe the sections of your book?
I think it was just the chronologicalness, if that's a word, the chronologicalness of it. I felt like it was, and it
Okay.
was just another thing that was kind of like dropped to me from source. It was like, okay, acts. So, and I liked it. I just, yeah, kind of liked it from the beginning, and I like the way, um, you talk about it when when you wrote it in a question and I was reading it, because there is a drama to it, and I guess now it's a very dramatic thing, and usually, like, when you get through something, maybe after you've gotten through it, it feels like when you were in it, it was a little more dramatic than than it is now. And that's not to say, to slight anybody's coming out journey or to slight my own, but I like the drama of it now, and I like that acts made you think of drama, so
Yeah, definitely. It definitely made me think of something very story-like, and it makes sense. It seems to me, I've written a couple books myself, and I've always written them in pieces. So to hear that you wrote yours pretty much from cover to cover, so from start to finish, is really inspiring and really like totally out of my wheelhouse to think of like how does one even go about doing that? Like it seems so, was it difficult for you to write it from start to finish like that, or did it really just flow for you?
it really just kind of flowed because I was writing the things as they were happening. So like the first act, poems written in the bathtub, I was just writing about the fear, about figuring it out, about yeah, just having the experience. And then in act two, if you notice in act two, it's like, okay, now we figured it out. Now act two is coming. So like now it's we're exploring this. We're having fun. We're meeting people, we're in relationships. So you get that in act two, and it just was chronologically how it was happening. And then out the last act is like, okay, we're fully out. We have opinions about things. We're learning about things. We're speaking, you know, for and celebrating this new community that we're a part of. We're unlearning things. We're deciding how we're gonna love. So it just kind of happened as I was living it. It was kind of I was writing it.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous. That's really cool to hear that it kind of like was parallel with your lived experience.
Mm,
Because I think a lot about like life as art and thinking about that. And it seems like you really were experiencing life as art and just putting it down on the page along the way.
mhm.
And that's like a really beautiful process. So I commend you for that.
Thanks.
Do you have a favorite poem in the book or one that you might like to perform? I guess those might be two different questions.
I do have a favorite. I would say probably the last poem in the collection is probably my favorite.
And what's the title of that?
It is I'm going to love one way or another.
Okay, yeah. And I will say, as somebody who's experienced hearing that song performed, very powerful. Very, and
Thanks.
I've heard it on, I'm pretty sure I've heard you perform it live as well as heard recordings on your Instagram. And there's just like such a sing-songy nature to it. I'm going to love one way or another. I'm going to, and then you go in and you like, it has this rhythmic kind of, like cadence to it that is really exciting to hear. I just know you pretty well at this point. You've been a friend of mine for a few years, and I always think of you as a spoken word artist first. And maybe because
Gracias.
I love spoken word poetry. Maybe that's why, but also you have such a presence about you, even in the way that you dress, you know, the way that you kind of carry yourself. It's really exciting to hear that you had this kind of revelation later on in life where you found out that you're queer and you're gay and you are coming out at 30. That's inspiring for other people who who may feel like they can't approach their own identity or they can't be something new later on in life.
Mhm.
You can't like we all experience these twists and turns of our identities as we grow older, but oftentimes we're like made to think that we should stay on the same road, that we can't divert our path. But it's really exciting to hear that really took it in stride and you were like, I'm a gay man now. I'm going to write about it. I'm going to take a bath and I'm going to put pen to paper and I'm going to soothe my soul by
Yes.
submerging in warm water and writing some poetry.
Yes, and I think to add on to what you're saying, I think that so many times in our society, we're taught that sexuality is this very binary black and white thing, and it's not, and it's fluid, and nature is queer, So I know that part of my writing and my life is about us kind of getting back to, you know, there's many of indigenous tribes and places where queer people were revered amongst their people, where two-spirited people were looked at as um, the ones who would provide wisdom and give um, knowledge to other people. So I think that a part of not just me celebrating my queerness, but the world celebrating queerness and having I want to say maybe a different opinion about what queerness is and how natural it actually is. It's just it's going back to what it is supposed to be, and I am grateful to just throw my book in the conversation.
Yeah, awesome. That makes sense. And, I definitely feel like it's more common than you'd think to kind of come out later in life, like, have these experiences where you realize something about your identity. For instance, I'm non-binary, and I remember the first time somebody asked me what my pronouns were,
Mhm,
and I remember saying, "I'm not sure." And that
mhm,
was kind of like the first kind of like, and it was post-college too. It was like right after college, like, I was probably like 23 and I wasn't really sure what, because I lean femme, but there's something very androgynous and very genderless about me as well. And I always thought that that was very powerful, but I never knew how to approach it.
mhm.
And I think approaching it through art, art is just like nature, it's just like flowers. Like, they may seem gendered in one way, or they may seem like they lean a certain way, but you can't, like, there's so many multitudes to something that you can't really like pinpoint it, you have to let it grow and sprout and bloom. And
Mhm.
I just think that it's so exciting to hear that you had such an empowered coming out story, that you put it in a book. That's what artists do. That's what writers do. They put it in a book and they make it accessible for other artists and people and, readers to be able to see your experience and be inspired by that. And I'm inspired by you, as always.
Likewise.
Yeah, oh, thanks. Um, and it's just really exciting to hear. I think there's a lot to be said for writing even a book in linear order. I'm just very intrigued by that. Um, when for Make You Love Your Religion, how did you write that one, if I'm going back a little bit further in your repertoire of writing?
I For that one, I did not write it in order. I just knew the chapters that I wanted, and then so once I would just once I started each chapter and knew kind of where I wanted to go with each chapter, then I would just hop around. One day I
Mm,
would be working on, love of God. Another day I'll be working on love of self. Another day, love of community. And then, but once they were all like pretty much finished, I knew, and I feel like I got kind of lucky. I knew that there needed to be some type of chronologicalness to it. But I think in the way that I ordered the chapters, it lended itself to that a little bit, and I kind of got lucky in the end where it kind of all came together.
awesome.
But I
And I
didn't
guess,
really
oh,
outline it, all that organized.
awesome. I guess that one was a little bit different because it was more like prose essay, whereas
Yeah.
poems written in the bathtub while coming out is all poetry.
Yep.
Maybe poetry and a little bit of prose, but poetic prose nevertheless. Um, what about I've heard like murmurs of your next book. And do you
Yeah.
want to talk about that a little bit? Like what you're planning for your next book, or did you want to save that for under wraps?
No, no, we can talk about it. I'm
Okay.
working on another book of poetry. It's gonna be called "Make Grief Your Religion," and it'll be a book of poems having to do with grief.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm excited about that, and I feel like it's a topic a lot of us can relate to.
So you seem, yeah, that definitely seems like it seems like a natural evolution to kind of have this identity, um, like identity focused book, and then kind of go into the grieving, because you are leaving something behind in order to obtain something new for yourself.
Mhm.
And even with that, there comes some grief, the grief of self, as well as like grief for others as well, and grief for society. There's a lot of really rich content there that you can mine.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Um, and it's interesting. So, do you imagine these books as a series or as something that's, I mean, they all come from you, so they all are intertwined into a certain capacity, but you have one that mirrors the title and then one that mirrors the genre. Are you seeing these as, like, a body of work that's all connected?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
I wanna keep that part under wraps, but the answer is yes.
Okay. Okay, that's okay. Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah,
I'm starting to pick at things, sorry.
no worries. I want there to be 3 parts of Make Love Your Religion, I'll say that.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I wanna put out Make Grief Your Religion, and then I wanna put out another book of poetry called, Poems Inspired by Love, Life, and Blackness, and
Wow.
then after that, I wanna, put out Make Love Your Religion too, and I
Okay.
want it to be a trilogy. So,
And Make Love Your Religion too, will that be poetry or will that be more essay?
that will be, like, very similar to part 1, but, um, talking about all the stuff that I don't like about part 1 now.
Okay, nice.
I mean, that's not gonna be the whole book, but some of that's gonna be in there. And just, I've learned a lot, and a lot of my opinions, even some opinions that I have from this less from poems written in the bathtub, like for example, having a poem called Girlfriends and Boyfriends. I probably wouldn't have a poem with that title now, just because I've
Yeah.
grown and learned and learned more about the need to do away with gender binary and just feel like we're always learning and growing, so the work is always changing, and how we present it is gonna change. So,
Yeah, I love that fluidity and your ability to be gentle with yourself and your past and all of your past selves.
thanks.
Because that's really important as an artist, I think, and the idea of going back and reworking something too and really adding on to something is so
Mhm.
important as an artist and to have, like, the longevity to your career, because we never stop growing as people and we never stop growing as artists, and just because we've made something and released something in the past doesn't mean it has to be the end point of that,
Right. Yeah.
you know, so
Definitely.
that's really exciting that you're looking to develop these projects further. That's, like, really, really cool.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, it's been really a pleasure talking to you about this. I'm really excited to see your other books that are coming out. It's really exciting to hear that you have a variety of books coming out and you have multiple too. You've got, like, a really what's it called? Like, colorful career
Thank
and a
you.
very vibrant career. And that's really exciting to see. I think I had one question on there that was, like, maybe about where you could perform, like, if you could perform anywhere, just a little, like, potpourri question.
Word.
Um, where
I'm
could you?
supposed
Because 'cause you're
I
such
would
a
love to.
traveler too, that seems like such a part of your career.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like I get a lot of good material when I travel. But, I'm supposed to go to South Africa, in a few months for a wedding. So if I go there, I would love to perform in Cape Town. And I haven't performed in Puerto Rico yet, and I would love to perform in Puerto Rico. There's a cafe in San Juan that I like a lot, and I would love to perform there.
I actually, when I wrote that question, I wondered if you would say that as your answer.
Puerto Rico?
Yeah,
But
just because it's, like, home and, like, you've got family there if I'm correct, right?
yep,
And,
on my
like
birthday.
and it's just such a big part of who you are as a person, like, there's not really David without David's poetry, like, David's poetry is part of who David is as a person, like, it's embedded in your body, you know? Like, being a
Thank
spoken
you.
word
I'll take
poet
that.
is like yeah, definitely, like, it's just so part of who you are, like, you really live and breathe poetry, and, like, you've always been that way